Ladies and gentlemen.
Hello, athletes and fans of bodybuilding. I'm Lenda Murray, 8 times Ms. Olympia, and you are watching Olympia TV. As usual, we always bring you the best IFBB pros on the Olympia stage, the best in our industry, and today, no different. Let me introduce first 2018 Rising Phoenix champion and Vice President of European Operations at Wings of Strength, Alina Popa.
Hey, Lenda, and hello, everybody. Thank you for having me.
All right. And for our guest for this evening, she is ranked 8th in the world. She placed 4th in her first Olympia. She won the Chicago Pro. Please welcome Sherry Priami.
Thank you, ladies. I'm happy to be here. It's an honor to speak to both of you. I'm really excited about tonight.
Yes. And no better than to have our 2018 Rising Phoenix champion. You just placed 4th last year at the Rising Phoenix. That was major.
Yeah, that was a great show. I was actually just telling Lenda earlier that I really love the Rising Phoenix, and I prefer it even over to the Olympia. The way that they treat the athletes at that show, just the whole weekend is something that I will never forget. It's probably one of the top moments of my life. So I was happy to be a part of it, and I'm glad that I can say that I did well both times I competed there, and even though that things have changed a little bit this year, I still hope to be at that stage again. It's a great time.
All right. Outstanding. So with that said, let's watch your posing routine from the 2024 Rising Phoenix. Let's watch, guys.
No, never.
Ever, no.
Never.
She's always coming, dialed in, nice and tight, doing her homework. Beautiful presentation, always. Polished. Showcasing her dense muscles.
I like that little twist right there. Nice. Look at that back.
And she
She's
did
just so crisp. Crisp.
She's very crisp. When did she switch from physique to bodybuilding?
It's been maybe over 2 years for sure.
She was in physique in 2020. And then in 2022, so she's been competing as a bodybuilder for 2 years now. But she did add that size.
She
was
really
way
did, and she
smaller.
did a great job of adding the size. Because you remember in the beginning,
yeah, her legs were not as developed.
Yes, and now look at her shoulders now. She's a bodybuilder. It's hard to.
Yeah, I do see cross striations on her triceps. That she did add a lot
I
of
think
size.
she looks amazing.
Wow. She's
What an anatomy chart.
She was on that first call out, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think she looks just as good as she did at prejudging. But
Yes,
the key question is, she now, we have Michaela Akon, we have Salika, right? Salika.
Yes.
And she improved. So
Yes.
she's going to have to, Sherry could be in 4th, 5th here, but people are going to have to hold off Salika coming. She's a lot better, and Salika could surpass her. We'll see on those poses.
Yes. The judging is not over.
And then, of course, Salika has her frame, her structure that's bringing her to her favor, right? It's going to pull her ahead. Sherry's got amazing conditioning. And just a little bit long. Wow. What a beautiful routine.
Thank you. That
I got
one,
chills just watching it.
that one was kind of special for me. It was a tribute to my daughter. She is a nun, and she would sing that song to me, Ave Maria, and it's one of my favorite Christmas songs. So I did that, just as an honor to her. That one had a special place in my heart.
Yeah,
That was
yeah. I
very
saw when you did this, and I thought I saw that.
So
very impressive routine. Sherry, you started in women's physique, right? As I was just talking about on the video. You did that right before making the leap to the women's bodybuilding division. Now, what
yes.
inspired that transition, and how did it feel to win your first two shows after switching the division?
Well, I have to be honest, the switch wasn't my decision at first. It was my coach's idea. I had taken the year off prior, so 2021. I took the year off to grow and put some size on for WPD, and that was my intention to come back and compete in that division. And my coach looked at me and said, as I dieted down, he said, I think you've put on a little bit more density than we realized. And he suggested that I try women's bodybuilding. This was, I think, like a month or two out from my first women's bodybuilding pro debut show, which was Lenda's show in Atlanta. And I had to, I felt like, okay, if he's telling me this, I'm going to believe him, because I had some history with this coach. And when I was in the NPC, I wanted to be a figure competitor. And he kept telling me, no, you're a women's physique competitor. But I had it in my head that, I wasn't. So I competed in both divisions because you can cross over in the NPC. And I won my pro card in, women's physique. And so I thought to myself, all right, he's done this to me before. I should just listen to him. And I said, I'll try. I'd also had scheduled Chicago Pro for that year. I said, well, we'll do Atlanta as women's bodybuilding. And if I do terribly, we'll just go back to women's physique in Chicago. So I did that show and competed with Michaela that year. And she ended up winning, and I came in second, which was the best placing that I've had. Even in women's physique, the highest placing I had was third in Tampa, and I had won the Masters there that year, but I hadn't placed higher than third at any show. So when I got second into Michaela, I admire her as an athlete and have for a long time. That was a really special moment. And I thought, wow, okay, maybe this is my division. So I decided to compete again in Chicago in women's bodybuilding. And, just to kind of see if this is really where I fit. And once again, I came in second to Angela Yo. And, we all know who Angie is.
Yeah, it's not bad coming next to second to Angela Yo. So
yeah. So at that point, I pretty much confirmed, okay, I'm in the division that I need to be in. So, that year just solidified that I was where I needed to be. And it was a good feeling. There was a lot of doubt sometimes if I was if women's physique was where I should be. I have a little bit wider of a waist. I've had 3 kids, and I didn't realize when I first started competing that not only is it the division that you like as, as a competitor, but you really have to look at where your physique is and what your structure is and where that's going to fit. And so I found a home in women's bodybuilding, and it has been great. I've been able to continue with the training intensity that I enjoy training with, and, being able to have really good, productive off seasons. And it's just been a blessing that I took that leap of faith.
Yeah. Chiming in is Ms. Olympia Women's Physique, Natalia Coelho. She says hello.
Oh, hey, Natalia.
Natalia is also a Florida girl. I've done some posing seminars with her. Yeah, she's great awesome. Too.
A lot of fans here. Let's see what this guy says here. He wants you to flex your arms.
All right, one time.
Woo! All right, here we go.
That's what we're talking about. So it is very interesting. I love the way you started with figure, and then but your mind was always open to whatever comes, whatever my body, my physique is good for, I will do. So that is very fascinating. But can you tell us a little bit more about your mindset during that early rise? So let's say what pushed you to go from fit by 40 to be one of the most elite competitors in the sport right now?
I think it's just an inner drive that I have to always be the best at whatever I set myself out to do. When I started this journey, I never thought I want to be on the Olympia stage. That just wasn't, uh, it just wasn't a long time aspiration that I had. I do know that, when I was starting, I remember my coach telling me I would send him pictures of professional athletes that I wanted to, I want her this, I want this part, I want to look like this. And he would say to me that, why are you looking at the pros? You're an amateur, stop, focusing on that. And I thought, no, like that's what I want to do. That's who I want to, look like, or I want to be on stage and doing these things. Why would I not look at someone above me and aspire to be them? And, and not so much to be them, but, to have the people that you respect and are watching in the sport to one day, be their rivals. And that was an exciting thing to me, the progress and the work, and knowing that, my efforts were on me solely, and that my outcome was based off of how much I put into it. So I gave it my all, and it's been a very rewarding experience for me.
Yeah, yeah. So you mentioned that you have children, 3.
I do.
So I want to play a video of what you do for a living.
Okay.
Here we go.
Alone.
Sherry's a people person, but after a long day of talking to people and the people more like mumbling back, it's time to get out and unwind.
Time work's done, I'm ready to go kind of exert some energy, let some of my steam off for the day. Typically for a dental hygienist, full-time is 4 days a week. I happen to only do 3 at the moment, which allows me to have a little bit more time to focus on my bodybuilding.
Wait, what?
Now it's like I can't get enough. I want to be bigger, bigger.
Part bodybuilder, part dental hygienist. Talk about balance.
I'm a pretty type A, OCD type of person. I work really well with a schedule and a plan. This is my sanctuary. This is where I come to decompress and, believe it or not, relax. This is my favorite time of day. This is where I feel comfortable. I feel at home here.
Bodybuilding wasn't always the plan for Sherry. After having her 3rd baby, she wanted to get back in shape. She and a friend said, let's sign up for a figure competition to give us a goal to work towards.
We had this whole Fit by 40 was our motto. My first competition, I won, and so we did another one, and I won that one, and that qualified me for a national show. It took on a life of its own after that.
Sherry got her pro card, and suddenly she was seeing herself for what she is, one of the top female bodybuilders in the world.
I don't think I realized how I looked or the changes that I had made until I saw my stage shots, of the competition, especially my back. I turned around and, oh my gosh, that's me. It was really kind of surreal.
As her muscles grow, so does her discipline, habits, heart, mental toughness. Something that she and any female bodybuilder need for success. And she's found community in the sport, less like competition and more like camaraderie.
I think we deal with a lot of society outlashing towards us for how we look. A lot of people don't find us socially normal, physically, which I understand.
Not really a surprise. Female bodybuilders hear it. They hear it from the trolls, people who don't understand what it takes. Sherry doesn't let it get to her. She puts in the work because that's what she wants.
That's what I focus on. I focus on the positive. And, I have a lot of younger girls who approach me and will say that, that I inspire them. And to me,
that's worth it all. You know, to be that kind of a role model for somebody doing something that you love, it's pretty cool.
It's never too late to go after a dream, and balancing it all takes a lot of strength.
I've learned that I'm a lot stronger mentally than I ever thought I was. That as long as you have that drive and that desire, you're pretty much able to do whatever you want in life. The confidence that comes with that, the ability to know that if you're consistent and you work the plan and you stay the course, as cliche as it sounds.
Oh, I love that. That was great. Tell us about a mom of 3, that journey, just being so many people admiring you, especially women. Talk a little bit about that.
You know, I do find a lot of joy in that women can look and see that we're breaking the barrier of what women are supposed to look like. You know, we've been told all of our lives, at least at my age, that we're supposed to be small and we're supposed to be skinny and we're supposed to be, you know, not strong. And, you know, I like to tell a lot of the girls coming up now that it's not even about how you look. That, you know, to me, like, I want to be able to get myself out of a chair when I'm 80. I want to be able to get on the floor and play with my grandkids. I want to know that my bone density is healthy and good, and that I don't have to rely on somebody to take care of me when I'm old and frail because I've taken care of myself. So it's not just about, you know, the aesthetics of it. It's about the longevity of, you know, your health as a female. So, you know, I try to let the girls at the gym know that. And I'm really excited to see that there's so many young girls in the gym now. I mean, even when I first started training, you know, 8 to 10 years ago, there wasn't very many women in the gym. And certainly there wasn't any in the free weight section, right? You know, we were all on the machines or in the classes and doing those type of, you know, cardio exercises. And for some reason, there has been a change in that in the last, you know, 5 years or so. So I'm excited to see it. I think that's going to be something great for the sport as far as, you know, continuing with, you know, females in bodybuilding. Women aren't afraid to go in and pick up heavy weight anymore. And it's great to see.
Yeah.
And it's been a great thing for my kids to see, and to them, you know, for them to see that if you put your mind to something and you work really hard at it and you stay consistent, that regardless of what it is, that you can get to the top. And I like to tell people, like, I started out as just a little housewife, a mom who was tired of having some baby weight on her, and I wanted to get, you know, physically fit. This was supposed to be a one and done bucket show thing for me. And, you know, and I let God take the wheel, and here I am 8 years later, and just did, you know, 2 years at the Olympia, and talking to 2 legends in the sport. So you never know. You never know what's going to happen.
So you have 2 boys and 1 girl.
Yes.
Right. So between the boys and the girls, like, how did they respond to you making that transition with your physique?
It's so funny because it's turned a little bit. When I first started, my daughter was very supportive. She loved the fact that I was doing something outside of being a mom, and I had something on my own, and her friends were like, wow, look at your mom. And that gave her a sense of pride. I think she really enjoyed it. She would come to my shows with me. She loved the routines. That was her favorite part. And my middle son hated it.
Did he?
Cried.
From the beginning?
Yes, from the beginning. I would show him pictures of what my goal was, and he was like, no, you know, you're not supposed to look like that. He was like, why can't you just be a treadmill mom like the other moms? And you know, the reason I think is that, you know, when I would show up at school functions and things, his friends started noticing. He was around 12, 13 years old. And that's when, you know, kids start to pick on you and see the differences in your family and things. And they would say comments to him like, you know, oh, but your mom can beat your dad up, and little things that just, you know, as a teenage boy, they don't want any attention brought to them.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, we had a couple rough years, and I just said to him, I'm not going to change what I want to do and who I want to be for the approval of your friends, And over the years, that has completely changed. He now comes to me for training advice, diet advice. We train together. He's come to the Olympias, and I think the first turning moment for him was when I took a picture with Chris Bumstead in Tampa at the Tampa Pro.
Wow.
And I sent it to him and I said, here, why don't you send this to your friends next time they start picking on you? Because they all love Chris.
Wow.
And, I think that was when it finally clicked, like, wow, okay, my mom's serious about this. My mom is,
Because you got to speak their language, right?
Yeah. So it's been really good. We've had some really great bonding times in the gym. And he used to play football and wrestle, and, his form wasn't good. They were, ego lifting at the gym at school. And so I, took him and taught him how to, lift properly. And so then all his friends started coming to him, asking him for, training advice, because he was starting to put muscle on. And it's been great. And then my 12-year-old, he's never known me not to have muscle, really. I think he was 5 when I started this. So he's proud of me being a bodybuilder. I mean, that's just what he knows. He definitely notices the difference between off season and on. He loves when the veins come back out, and and like right now, he's like, oh, you're so squishy, you're so soft. He can feel the difference in my physique and makes comments, but he's very supportive, and it's been great. So, and the dieting, I never push my diet on my kids. They see how I eat, they see what I do, but it has definitely made them more health conscious. They'll say to me, is this healthy to eat? Is this, maybe we shouldn't be having this. When my son was in football, there was times that I'd be taking him to practice and we'd be running late, and I'd say, can we just swing in and get you a burger? Like, you need to eat something. And he was like, I'm not eating a burger before I go play football. He's like, that's terrible. He's like, I need something healthy. I need something that's going to make me feel good. And that made me feel good that he's aware of and in tune with how food makes you feel and you perform, So overall, it's been a great thing. My daughter, I mentioned, she's a nun now. Wow. So she, unfortunately, her new beliefs do not allow her to see me in like a posing suit, exposing so much flesh.
Wow.
And I have to honor her decision and her beliefs, but it has caused a little bit of a wedge there. Like, she doesn't want to see any more of my posing videos. She doesn't want to see anything. She's like, Mom, you can still talk to me about your competitions. You can still talk to me about, what's going on, but I can't see those things anymore.
Yeah.
And I got a little upset about it at first, because I'm like, I'm your mom, I mean,
yes.
Nevertheless, I cannot stop noticing, like when your son was like fighting against it and saying, Mom, you embarrass me. Why can't you be just a treadmill mom? You just kept on going. And then this way you taught him a lesson about how can he choose his own path and to stand behind his choices, stand behind what fuels him and his passions. And I think that this is such a beautiful lesson for your children.
Yes. And we have talked about that, and he now sees that and understands. And I'm happy that was the example that I led for him. Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah. I don't think people realize what we go through as women when we make the decision to fall in love with weight training and iron, and then kind of find our way. And we become this, force to be reckoned with when you step outside into the world, go grocery shopping, go to the post office, and you kind of command attention from people. My father did not attend my first Olympia. Very same type of thing, because of his faith. He was uncomfortable seeing his daughter on stage in a bikini, and it was just, but I won that first Olympia in New York. And then that second year, he was right there in the audience. So
Funny how the support like comes up when you make some achievements, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. My
yeah.
son didn't turn down the Olympia tickets when I said, hey, you're going to
Yeah,
the Olympia. He was like,
yeah,
oh, okay. Yeah.
And
yeah.
you were saying that you were a little bit upset in the beginning when that happened with your daughter. And how do you deal with that? It's let's say call it extreme in two ways, right? The sport is
Right.
extreme, and then being a nun in whatever denominated religion, that is an extreme thing. So how do
Right.
you juggle these two extreme things?
Well, I think it'd be really hypocritical of me to not understand her point of view and where she's coming from, and that she has made decisions for her life,
Mhm,
just as I've made
mhm,
decisions for mine. And I do things that are not socially normal. It's not what
mhm.
the average mom looks like or does. And so, how can I ask her to have respect for me if I don't respect her?
Mhm.
So, I really have to, remember that even though it hurts my feelings, and I think that, I think it hurts my feelings more because we bonded over it. It was how, I
Mhm.
felt close to her to still be able to go visit her and share in what was happening. And then for her to tell me like, I'm sorry, I can't share in that with you anymore.
Wow.
Um, that was a little heartbreaking for me, but I also have other things that go on in my life and other things to focus on. And I just try to go in that direction when I'm with her and realize that I am her mother. I am not a bodybuilder to her.
Yeah,
So in
that's
her
right.
mind, what I do on stage or in my, free time, it's not that important for our relationship.
Mhm.
So I
Mm,
focus on other things.
I
mm.
love that. I love the wisdom behind all of that. That's awesome. I love to see that you give her as much grace as you'd like to receive for yourself.
Mhm,
Absolutely.
That is
mhm,
the
Absolutely.
beauty of all of it. And I wanted
mhm.
to kind of like go circle back a little bit more to these place things and the competitions. And how was that for you when you first won your Chicago Pro and you first qualified for the Olympia? How did that hit you? Because this is, I feel
Well,
like a strong moment. Wow, I am Olympia material.
the first Olympia qualification was actually at the Vancouver Van Isle show.
Oh,
Mhm.
okay.
And so that was my first Olympia. And, that was a great experience. One, they put on a phenomenal show. They're wonderful promoters. Everything was just really ran impeccably well. They are very present, in talking to the competitors, making sure we're good. And so the experience was great. And being in a new place, a new country, I've never been to Canada. That was really great. And to win, it was the second. What happened was, I got second, and then I got second, and then I got third at Tampa, my first year competing in
Mhm.
women's bodybuilding. So I'm like, I'm like knocking on the door. So
Yes.
I told my coach, I said, we're right there. I feel it. I said, I want to do the very first show of the season next year, regardless of where it is. I don't care where it is. That's what we're going to do. And I'm going to win that first show. I was
Mhm.
kind of strategic about it because I knew that most of the Olympians weren't going to be jumping into the very first show of the season. I think the Olympia was in December that year. So the first show was in April. And I just had a belief in myself. I just said, I'm going to win that show and we're going to
Mhm.
go to the Olympia next year. I can feel it.
Mhm.
And sure enough, it happened. So that was great. But then, as time goes on, you think to yourself, was it just a fluke that I won, that show? And it wasn't. Not to say anything bad about their show at all, but
Mhm.
we know there's levels to these shows.
Sure.
And it's not like I won the New York Pro or I won the Tampa Pro, it was
Mhm.
the Van Isle Vancouver show.
Yes,
So
I understand.
um so I had a little bit of doubt going into the next year. And the first show that I had done last year was Portugal. My
Mm.
coach is from Europe, and so he said, why don't you come do a European show? I was always looking for a reason to go to Europe, so I'm like, let's do it. And I came in second again at that show. So, I was, I just had a little bit of doubt in the back of my mind. And somebody reached out to me and said they wanted to help me do Chicago. That wasn't in the plan. It was a week later. I've never done a show and then did another one a week later. I wasn't sure. I also had gone through Portugal for 3 days and was eating whatever I wanted because I thought I had like 5 more weeks till my next show.
Sure.
So all the stars just sort of fell into alignment for that, for Chicago. And I reached out to my coach and I said, look, somebody's offered to sponsor me for this show. I talked to my work. They'll let me have, the time off. I talked to Tim Gardner. He'll let me come in late to do my registration, to get there. Do you think we could be ready for this show? I said, I'm not going to do it if you say no. If you think that I'm not going to show up to be my best, we'll skip it. And he said, no, I'll have you ready in 3 days. Like, okay. So I just put my faith in my coach. I showed up in Chicago the night before the show, and I had my mindset for that show was just, again, I said, I'm winning this show. Like, there was no question. I was coming to win. And sure enough, I did. And I think that winning moment was more special than the first because it proved in my mind, you are good enough. You are.
And this is exactly what was I asking about. Is like, you won this big show, right? There was not a smaller show. This was a Chicago Pro, right? It's up there with Tampa, with New York. So that was the impact it had on you.
It was. It really gave me the confidence to believe that I belonged, up there with the best. And so it really had a special place in my heart. The second one, yeah.
I love that.
So you love women's bodybuilding. I mean, you yes, yeah, you found your.
It's funny because when I first started out in the NPC and wanting to be a figure competitor, I looked at what's her name, Nicole Wilkins.
Oh, Nicole Wilkins.
Yes, and that was who I said I remember showing my son, this is what I want to look like, and then he was looking at pictures of women bodybuilders and. He's like, are you going to look like this eventually? I'm like, no, I'm never going to be that big. I don't want to be that big. I'm never going to be that big.
Yes.
And, as you ladies know, I mean, you get addicted to not even how it looks, but, training. And how do you continuously train the way that you like to train and not put on more size year after year, right?
Yeah.
So I finally feel like, even though this isn't what I set out to look like, I love myself more and more every year, the more muscle that I have on my body. I really am embracing taking up space and being thicker and denser and not frail.
That's a great way to put it. Taking up space.
Yes.
Well, then you won the Chicago Pro, and then you kept on going last year, and you got 4th at the Rising Phoenix. Now, how did that fail? Because it was a big, thick field there. It was at least 15 or if not 17 competitors last year.
Yeah. That felt great. I had gotten 6th place the year before.
Front lap,
So, anytime you're up there with the greats, Andrea, Angie, Michaela, I mean, standing next to Ashley Jones, I mean, she's incredible. It was just an amazing experience again. And once again, just solidified that, I belong in this division. This is home for me, unfortunately, my placing dropped at the Olympia this past year. From 4th to 8th. And I do feel like a lot of that, the competition was fierce this year or this past year. So, it was, I think it was one of the best lineups that I've seen in women's bodybuilding in a long time. So even coming in 8th, I'm still proud of that. But, of course you want to be first call outs. You want to be in the top, so that's what, I'm going to continue to aim for. But, I love the Rising Phoenix show. I was telling Linda earlier that, we are just treated top notch at that show and you made to feel really special. And I really enjoy it even more than the Olympia because of that. And it'll probably be like one of the greatest moments of my life being up on that stage with those women.
So, this there you are, you're second from the far right. What improvements what improvements have you made in your physique, going from women's physique into bodybuilding?
Just overall size. I know, that my weakness is, I need to be more balanced. I have a very strong upper body. My back is one of my stronger body parts, and I need to balance that with bigger legs. So it's been a continuous battle for me to grow my legs, and it's something I'm still working on, but this is bodybuilding, right? I mean, there's always improvements. There's always things that, that we need to continue to improve on. And that's really been my focus, is trying to bring my legs up to bodybuilding standards, because it's different in bodybuilding than it is in women's physique.
Yeah. Yep. There you are with that back double bicep and totally holding your own. You're right there with the best. So you placed fourth here.
Fourth at Rising. Yeah.
Fourth at the Rising Phoenix.
Sharp. Such an amazing condition. Such an amazing shape you had here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, we've talked just briefly about the fact that this year, the Rising Phoenix, as far as the prize money, it's changed. So I don't know if you want to elaborate on that, or just kind of your thoughts on, because you just said you love the Rising Phoenix. So your thoughts on that.
So at first, it was heartbreaking to hear. And, my first reaction was anger, right? Because I feel like women's bodybuilding is constantly getting slighted at every turn. And so I thought, oh, great. The one show that was supposed to be supporting us is now not supporting us. And then I don't like to have a negative outlook on things. So I try to step back and take the emotion out of it and think logically. And I understand. I understand the purpose of that show. That show was started because we didn't have a place at the Olympia. That was our Olympia. And now we're back at the Olympia. So I understand, taking that step back. But I still have some feelings, about the overall prize money. And, this is just my opinion. I feel like, okay, so we can't have the prize money at two shows, but in my mind, I feel like there's stages to this. There's levels.
Yes.
And I feel as if the women's bodybuilding division should be awarded a larger prize than someone who's coming in to fit model. I'm not saying that one division's better than the other, but it's kind of like being a college grad. You don't get out of school and get $100,000 paying job your first year out of college. But as you work and you grow into your company, you continue to get raises and you continue to earn more money.
Yes.
And I feel like that's how it should be with bodybuilding. I feel like they should take some of that prize money and give it to the Miss Olympia at the Olympia. We should not be awarded the same amount as the fit model division. We've put in years to develop our physique, years that you can't just step, into this overnight and become this. And I feel like that dedication to the sport, that dedication to ourselves, the money, the time, the effort should be rewarded as such. Mr. Olympia gets more money, than some of the other divisions. And I don't understand it necessarily the way you ladies do, because you're promoters.
Yeah.
So you know the background, and how, the money from, sponsors and things occur. So I'm probably stepping a little, out of line by having these opinions, because I don't know all of the information. But in my mind, it only makes sense that, if we're going to get rid of the Rising Phoenix and that prize money, that it shouldn't be just split between all the divisions. I still feel like a larger percentage should be given to women's bodybuilding at the Olympia.
Yeah. I don't know if there's been a decision at all in regards to what will happen. I just know that there was an announcement, and I don't believe that's been said.
Yeah, I understand. Like that was sort of a vague, you know,
Yeah.
description of what's going to happen. And so again, I'm probably, you know, speaking out of turn here, but that's just my, you know, initial thoughts that, you know, the women's bodybuilding division should be accredited with more because of the amount of time that it takes to get to this level. There are levels to this, you know, and I think it would help our division that, you know, there's a lot of women's physique competitors that could be women's bodybuilders that, you know, that should be women's bodybuilders. And I, you know, I think there's sometimes a stigma with our division that make women not want to cross over. And I probably believed that before I came into this division, but now I know that that's not true, and that you can still maintain your femininity and you can still, you know, present yourself and be the same type of competitor that you were in women's physique, even with added muscle. And you know, it was really, like, for me, it was really exciting to see some footage of the Arnold in Brazil this past weekend. There was some really great women's physique competitors. And it's been a while since we've seen a good lineup of amateurs that have the potential to grow into this division. And I just feel like we need to have a little bit of something to motivate women to step up into women's bodybuilding. And let's be honest, I mean, you know, if we're not doing this just for the love of it, we're doing it because we want to win some money and cover some of our expenses. So if the money's higher for women's bodybuilding like it is for men in the open, I think a lot more women would cross over into this division.
You know, it's very interesting, and I really love to hear your perspective as a competitor, because obviously, you know, I have been a competitor up until 2018, and many times as you are in a sport, you know, it's very easy to apply different criteria, but no single criteria is the only one that's valid when you apply it. Let's say from a female bodybuilder competitor perspective, they're gonna say, like, I had to work 5 years to get on stage, whereas a fit model or a bikini, they only train for 3 months. But I think that when you start competing, all divisions are all together, are parts of the same spectrum. We all making together one sport that is very complete, right? So the idea is that we want to appeal to the general public. We want to make the sport very, very attractive for the people. So if we are going to consider the most muscular people as the representatives of the division, that is very one-sided. I think that the sport is represented by the small all the way to the big. Therefore, we all play a very vital role in the way the entire federation and the entire image of the sport moves. Now, when you think about, yes, I have to work more, it's true, we have to work a little bit more as bodybuilders than the first divisions, but in the end of the day, it is our own choice and it is our own structure and our own circumstance that puts us in that position. So I understand that, but all the more, I also have the perspective of the promoter, right? So there's no money that comes from the government. You know what I mean? There's no money that comes from the federation. There's no money that's just being given or split. This is organized purely from a business point of view. So, you know, like, if you consider the fact that the money for female bodybuilders, 50% of all these shows, including Olympia, comes from the same company. You know what I mean? It is extremely supportive for the division. First of all, the fact that the Olympia was brought back, right? I mean, I remember when that happened. I was on stage in 2014, and that was the last one before the hiatus. And we signed petitions, all female bodybuilders and fans of supporters. We sent them to the federation, and people were saying this is never going to come back. So it really took Wings of Strength and Jake Wood to come back and pull it out, you know.
And that's what I was going to say, you know, even with the Tampa, Alina, I mean, we are so grateful that once again, you and Jake have stepped up to bring Tampa back. But it makes me sad that we keep turning to the same, you know, person for that. And and we need
that,
to.
that is what is, and this is always a matter of cooperating, right? Because we need the competitors to stick together with the company that supports them, right? And be able to represent, be able to compete, be able to bring all the positivity from the general public, bring the attention onto the division, right? In a in a positive way, as I was saying, because you cannot just go to one person over and over. At some point, it will end. And if the division is not sustainable by itself, how can we push this? And this was one of those decisions that had to be made, because if we want to ensure the longevity, you'd much rather take an amount of money and stretch it for years than just give it for 5 years and then it's done, right? Allow the division to organically be able to support the money that's being invested in it. So this is kind of like where we are at this point.
Yeah. I'm going to agree with Sherry on the fact that when I think about bodybuilding and I think about our history and the foundation of bodybuilding, going back with the men in the early 60s, and then they added women's bodybuilding. For me, my opinion, when they first decided to remove women's bodybuilding, that was for me, how can I say it? Like, we're the foundation. And so that speaks to our entire industry. If you cannot figure out how to, from the judges' podium, control the judging and really cultivate women bodybuilders, like if you take women bodybuilding away, then that's how can I say it? It's like no courage, right? There's no courage behind that. So I do look at women's bodybuilding as the premier of all of our 6 divisions. Like, you have to respect women bodybuilders. If you don't respect women bodybuilders and you take women bodybuilders away, or we don't have the prize money there, and women's bodybuilding has been around for a very long time, and if you're not using us as the premier, then that says something about you're not really organized as far as, you can't go and just take the easy way out. Of course, bikini, a lot of women would die to look like a bikini competitor. A lot of women would die to be figure. So am I going to say that what I do and who I am and what I had to go through and what Sherry's gone through and you, Alina, we are the premier. We're the foundation of women. We're the beginning. And so if you want people on the outside to look at us, you have to look at us and respect that if we're going to lift up the most muscular female, the one that's not what mainstream says, that says a lot about us, that we're strong. You don't come in and tell us who deserves this or that, but we're the beginning. We've been there a long time. We laid the foundation.
I agree, Lenda, but if you looking at other federations have already removed this division, right? So we need to, as women bodybuilders, we need to be strong and smart and increase our numbers and present ourselves in a certain way, right? We need to be beautiful, we need to be feminine, we need to be competitive while keeping it all in certain norms, right? So we can present ourselves with dignity in front of the public. This is very important, and the division will only thrive if we help each other from the inside out, right? There is Jake Septino, his Wings of Strength. We can call him a sort of savior, but there is no more savior about this. This is the chance that we have to support ourselves and present this wonderful image of what the premier bodybuilding, the premier size in bodybuilding is for women. So we all have a responsibility. All the competitors have a responsibility from this perspective.
I agree.
The judges need to have some responsibility in that as well, though. I mean, at least for me as a competitor, there are certain limitations to what I will do and what I want to look like for myself. And there are lines that I won't cross, and there are, you know, things that I don't want to look a certain way. And you know, sometimes I think when you're constantly told you need to get bigger, you need to get bigger, you need to add size, you know, then the next thing you know, they're telling us women are too big. We don't want to see women bodybuilders on the stage. You're too big. You have too much muscle. Nobody wants to see that. Well, we only kept pushing because the judges kept telling us to get bigger. So there has to be some responsibility there as well. I mean, I think the same thing kind of happened with the bikini division. We now have Fit Model because they say bikini has now evolved into, you know, a more muscular version, and we're starting back over. But they're starting back over because the judges keep rewarding bigger, more and more. You know, so
I do believe I also do believe. Go ahead,
I just feel like there needs to be some accountability on their end as well. If you don't want to see women oversized or looking, you know, not feminine anymore, then don't reward that. That look.
And
You
it's
know?
also a matter of, I'm sure that when judges give feedback, if a competitor has a structure for a smaller division, I know that the judges will say you should go back to physique. Right. But there are competitors that are very obsessed with being in certain divisions. And that's when the problem comes, because if your body doesn't support the type of muscularity that's needed for the division, then you're going to have to make compromises, and then everything goes down the drain. So that is also a very important component to take into consideration.
Okay, that's a good point. Yeah. Because because it can be addicting, you know, and sometimes we are the first, I'll admit, to have body dysmorphia, and you don't realize.
But you know, I also met like physique competitors that cannot get that hard, and they choose to cross over in bodybuilding because bodybuilding, they say it's softer. So I disagree with that. No, if you have a small frame, you have a smaller frame, you didn't know how to, you didn't learn how to harden up your body for that division. Why do you cross over in bodybuilding and then you're soft, and then you think that you have better chances to place ahead because the competitors in bodybuilding are not as hard, and then you're being told to get bigger because obviously you're too small, and then you push too much, and then you say like, oh, you told me to get bigger. But let's not forget, what is the initial part? The initial part is a lack of proper judgment. That is your division. Your task is not to get bigger. Your task is to get more conditioned.
Yeah, I think I want to make it really clear that, you know, I know when Jake took over the Olympia, and we knew that he was going to bring back women's bodybuilding, like, he loves the sport, the men and the women. And he just made it clear that it's bringing it back. It was about all of the athletes. You know, it was truly about all the athletes. And I think another point to make, I feel like the comment that we just made about the Rising Phoenix last year, that, you know, when we had to make that decision on all the athletes, like, the lineup was so great. Like, the Olympia, you know, and what the comment that you made, Sherry, about what you saw in Brazil with women's physique, and there were some amateurs that were coming back on the scene. We women bodybuilders, we've gone through a lot because it's like, put on the brakes, take your foot, put your foot on the gas, brakes, gas, brakes, gas. So we've gone through this, you know, inconsistent message, and I know we're back on track. So what would you say to your fellow competitors on what they can do to get the sponsors, to what can you do as an athlete, you feel?
You know, I do think social media presence is important, you know, as much as I'm not a fan of it. It is important. I mean, we don't have magazines anymore. You have to promote yourself. You have to earn a fan base. You have to put yourself out there so people know who you are, and, you know, and can be a part of your experience. People connect with people. And, you know, I was thanking Lenda when I first came on today, because shows like this, I think, are really beneficial for our sport, for our divisions, because people want to hear from the competitors. They want to know who you are. They want to feel like, they're rooting for, their favorite athlete. And, that's going to happen if you put yourself out there and you give the public a little bit of you. So that's really important. And I think that it's great that, the Olympia is starting to showcase their athletes. That's going to keep fans, connected to us and want to watch our shows and be part of the sport. You don't have that connection with just people's faces. You want to know who they are. So, other than that, as far as sponsorships, I really think that you have to lead by good examples. You have to be somebody that other people, aspire to be. So you have to watch the kind of content you put out and the kind of the way that you represent yourself. You have to remember that this is a professional division and profession sport, and you have to present yourself in a professional manner if you want other people to follow, and do what we're doing.
Yep. Right on. I agree. Well said.
And I know that we're slowly approaching the end of our segment, but I am really curious, what are your plans for 2025? How are we going to see you on stage this year?
I'm not sure yet. I do know that I need to make some improvements to my physique to be a little bit more competitive. The judges have told me that I need to balance, my upper to lower body. So more, leg growth overall. And so right now I'm just training and I don't have any set plans. If it turns out that we think that I've gotten to the point where I can present myself in a way that I feel proud to do so, then I'll compete this year. And if not, and I need more time, then I'll take it and maybe do something early next year. Haven't made any solid decisions yet.
Well, I know I was really happy to see you come on the scene. I love it when I see athletes in women's physique and, your presentation is polished and just such a good fit and just excellent.
I take it very seriously. I want to promote myself in the best, way I can. And I take the judges' critiques very seriously. And I just want to make sure that every time I do step on that stage, I have improved. I have given them what they've asked for. I know that this is a journey and it's not done in, overnight, and it takes some time, but, the last thing I want to do is get on stage and they say, I don't really see any difference with Sherry this year. I'm not competing just to be on the stage. I want to improve myself. I want to give, what they're asking. So if that takes a little bit extra time, then I'm going to take it.
And I know that this is a very individual sport, and the best way to go about it is to focus on yourself. But at the same time, you were talking about the unity among female bodybuilders. And how important is that sense of community for you?
It's very important. And I'll tell you what, I think a lot of people look at female bodybuilders and think that maybe we're not nice or we're, tough, or the female body division and competing with these ladies, I have the best connection that I've ever had competing in this division. The women, I don't know if it's because there's so few of us, but we really, even though we're competitors, we develop friendships and bonds, and we have the greatest time backstage. And, we really support each other. We know that this is an individual competition, but we have to unite together and stay strong together in order for it to be successful. And we do that. And, so I have nothing but wonderful things to say about the ladies that I compete with. I've never been backstage and felt uncomfortable or, just it's been just a really beaming light in my life.
That's awesome. So what legacy do you hope to leave in this sport, and not just on the stage, but for women coming up behind you?
I got started late in this sport. I am older than most people realize. And so I really hope that I am an example to women that they can do this at any age, at any time they decide, that you can be a mother and still focus on yourself and still take care of yourself. And that, if you work hard and you stay determined, that, you can rise to the top. I really think, when people look back on the example that I've led, is that, you can have a job, you can be a professional, you can be a mother, you can still do all of this. It's not just a one-sided sport, So I just hope that people look at me in that example and it inspires them to take care of themselves and to go after what,
Sherry, that's just because you're very structured and organized. That would overwhelm a lot of people that don't have that kind of feature and focus in their life.
Yes, it could. I am very organized. I have to say that, and I mean, I'm not coaching at this point in time, but, I have given some consideration to maybe opening the doors to coaching, and not even to just competitors, but just lifestyle, women, to teach them, how to be structured, how to go about having children and still do this, how, because there is a method to my madness.
Of course, that is very, very precious advice. And now, where can fans follow your journey and support you as you continue your journey pushing towards that Miss Olympia stage?
I really put all of my bodybuilding content on Instagram. I'm not on TikTok. I don't do, some of the other social media things. I have Facebook, but I kind of save that more for my family type, postings, and really keep bodybuilding on Instagram. So that's the best way to reach me, to follow me. I put all of my content on there. So yeah. That's it. I wish I had time. I wish I really had time to do a YouTube channel. I would love to, but I know my limits. I've got a lot of other stuff going on.
Yeah, I know. It's a lot of work, man. I don't know how you can work a full-time job and then bodybuilding, preparing for a competition. That's like the whole life, your whole life, pretty much.
It is. And I'm blessed that even though I did start this late in life, I have lived enough life to know what I'm giving up for it, and I'm okay with that. I don't need to party anymore. I don't need to go out and do all these things. I'm good. Work, gym, home, I'm good.
Yeah.
Well, I don't feel like I'm sacrificing.
Yeah. What's so great about this show? I mean, I learn something every day. I want the audience to know you, to see your great presentation. I learned that you're a mom of 3, that you're a dental hygienist. So it's like when I see you on stage, I see you in a different light, and
that's what I mean by, growing the sport in that regard. I think that the more that we have the ability to showcase who we really are, the more fan base will be able to draw in and have people connect with us. So I appreciate the opportunity tonight. It's been great talking to you ladies and being able to share a little bit about who I am and what I have going on. So thank you.
Yeah, it's absolutely great. Yeah, well, guys, everybody out there, thank you for joining Alina, Popa, and myself, and tuning in to see the amazing Sherry Priami.
Thank you.
Yep. And with that, we'll see you next Friday.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Have a wonderful weekend.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
She left.